I'm Tony Sklar with bnetTV. Good morning and welcome to day 2 of the CTIA Application and Enterprise Conference here in San Diego. I am joined by Hipcricket's Jeff Hasen. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Good morning.
Excellent. Listen, we're into day 2. There's always lots of buzz going on in this particular conference. Tell me what you saw yesterday and what was fantastic.
Well, I think we're just a few days after the unfortunate passing of Steve Jobs, and every show we come to, the glaring omission is where's Apple, right?
Where is Apple?
But the conversation this year, obviously in the Sprint section, is the iPhone that's about to be on sale. But also, I spent a lot of time in that section, and they were really showing other devices, including a really cool Samsung device, which is the same price at $199 for the low end one, and really is a cool. Unless you're an Apple fanboy, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't consider one against the other. So I think a lot of what we're seeing is anticipation of the holiday season and more smartphone penetration, and I think that a lot of people at the show are looking at lower end offerings with the carriers, which are going to bring in folks. It's a little bit laughable to me that the early pre-orders for the iPhone are getting headlines.
Yes.
I mean, those are the same people who bought the iPhone in 2007,
Absolutely.
2009, and 2011. Where I see it's going to matter is, last year, carriers were giving phones away for free with a 2-year contract, and they moved the needle a little bit. I think we're going to even see more aggressive tactics. Not sure what else you get, but maybe you get free messaging for a while, maybe you get free data for a while. But I do think that the smartphone population is going to grow closer to that 50%, and that's going to help everybody at the show.
Is that nomenclature of smartphone not a useful term anymore, since most phones are smart and so many low-end phones have so much capabilities and functionality that that they can run pretty well close to what the high-end phones can?
Yeah, I mean for sure it's a marketing term spoken from a chief marketing officer. Their feature phones are smartphones, and I did some research in the spring about how people use their phones, and looked at how they interact on social networks, in what I call these moments of trust, consumer touch points with brands. And my view is they're not necessarily feature phones or smartphones, they're megaphones, and you have an ability with any kind of phone to influence opinion. Right? You used to lose the battle for public opinion in 2 hours. Now, with any kind of phone, feature, or whatever you want to call it, you have an ability to tell your friends that, hey, something cool is happening, come down here, or there's a cockroach that's going up the wall in the Chinese restaurant, and you never want to frequent this place again. So I agree with you. I think phones are more capable, networks are more capable, prices are coming down. But there's less barrier to entry just because the price point is coming down so much.
And components are coming down in prices. I had a great conversation yesterday with Joe Kafari from PCD, and he was talking about a lot of those lower priced phones that are entering the market on a number of different carriers, widespread, especially as we get into the holiday season, which inevitably increases the amount of applications that are going to be driven into the marketplace, and of course the following economics that ensue into the rest of the companies that control those particular applications or those particular regular resources. That means, and I'm looking for some good comment on this, that means that there's more marketing, more ERP, and more CRM that drives behind that particular engine.
Absolutely. And I do think that marketing to consumers, we've gone from the one-offs via mobile. We did a great campaign with Coca-Cola in 2006, and all we wanted to do was interact with NCAA Final Four visitors for 5 days. We really weren't looking to interact with them on an ongoing basis. But now Coca-Cola won't do anything without looking at, okay, so what's even you have a conversation with them, lifetime value. If I interact with a 7-year-old with Sprite, what's the lifetime value, and how can I have this meaningful, ongoing relationship with them? That
particular data that inevitably gets kept within the CRM systems obviously can be reused, retooled, and remarketed to, which has to show the brands that there's a higher return, a higher ROI on that data. So therefore, does that mean that more funds, more money, more line item budgets can come into play?
Yeah, I mean, from Hipcricket's perspective, we definitely see that. We're also selling a bit to different people. We used to sell to brand managers, which we still do, but there are other conversations when you tie in CRM and back-end systems. You have more of a technical sell. I've been in conversations and they say, how do you tie into the CRM system? And I need to bring in my VP of engineering or our head of product but companies like ours, from security and privacy and all that, you need to be top notch for the Alaska Airlines of the world who demand that. I just wanted to make one point on the phones. It's always been interesting to me about choice and what's the number one driver for choice. And I always thought it was cool device or price, and network always shows to be the top. And that's why you have this marketing speak of fastest network, more coverage, those kinds of things, because consumers are saying, okay, can I use my phone anywhere and everywhere, and how fast is it going to be? And back to your question, as you have more people on the network with richer phones and doing additional things, you have challenges with the networks. Is the speed going to be sufficient? I've been in this business since the mid-2000s. I don't know how fast my phone is,
Sure.
So I'm doing research because I'm likely to buy the next iPhone, and
Sure.
Is the Sprint phone noticeably slower than the AT&T phone, and because I'm maybe going to make that switch, and if I don't know this, not that I'm so technically savvy, but I'm looking at benefits and features, right? That's the way I
Those are
market.
important things for you, yeah.
Right. So I want to know it's fast, but I don't really know it down to the megabyte or mega speed.
Sure. And so I guess that's a really good point. First of all, is the jury still out on that? And two, has that been a topic of conversation throughout this conference, or is it something that is still talked about within the industry? Which network is faster, or are we complacent in the fact that maybe they're all not so great? Or I shouldn't say not so great, because that's not a very fair statement, but the fact is there's just so much load on all of the networks that maybe, in majority of pockets, things are just slow.
Right. I do think in our interactions with brands, and we work with over 300 clients, I can't really point to any points where they said, okay, this is not sufficient because the speed won't allow us to do something. I think what made the industry, at least in years ago, was cross-carrier, applicability, and with text messaging, and so you can interact with anybody, and you have these applications, and iMessaging that's coming on the iOS system, and you see these headlines: is it going to replace text messaging because it's a free app? My view, Hipcricket's view, is that you need to be ubiquitous, and you need to not exclude. So the Macy's, the Dr. Peppers, the Nestle's of the world do not want to run a program that some people can participate and other people can't. They don't want to have fine writing that says unless you're on the Sprint network or unless you're on the AT&T network. So I think that again, we haven't seen the speed issue be a factor. As we have richer applications, Hipcricket, thankfully, we've progressed, and we do end-to-end. We do everything from SMS to MMS to mobile websites. That becomes more of a factor than when we were doing SMS platform deals back in 2007 and 2008 primarily.
So consistently at these particular conferences, and fairly standard within all the tech conferences, at least in North America, we do see representation by the carriers because there's got to be a brand recognition associated with the industry to begin with.
Right.
However, with CapEx being squeezed as much as it's being squeezed in this particular recession, the infrastructure might not be rolling out as fast as it could be. Rob Mesler was on the program late yesterday and said that with the amount of connected devices that's coming online, those particular devices, especially when it comes to machine they don't need a lot of bandwidth. They don't need to have that throughput that is so grand that we're talking about little bits of bytes.
Right.
So the network still can utilize a lot of those legacy systems, so it's not inhibiting the movement of those the further connected devices that we're going to have by 2016-17.
Right. And I see a big trend, and Microsoft talks about this a lot, the connected device, and that what you do on one device, you pick up and you do it on the other device. So one of the big topics here is obviously the cloud. And I'm a big fan of Dropbox, as a lot of people are, because I work on multiple computers. I work on my office computer, I work on home computer, and it's invariably I would have a document on the wrong computer. Microsoft, among others, are looking to provide the experience, the same user experience as much as you can. Obviously, there are differences between a mobile device and a computer or a tablet, but create these experiences where people are connected and are familiar with interacting that way, and bring their data and bring their music and bring their content along with it. So obviously you have challenges. I started in this business with ringtones and graphics and games, and you talk about rights and the music labels and the carriers. You know, are you going to have the rights to have your music on all of your devices? You know, these are issues that these shows are made for. And having these kind of conversations. I'm about to be in 3 MMA meetings, different committees, the consumer best practices and others, and these are the kind of issues that we talk about.
But let's switch topic of conversation there for a moment into some best practices and standards and regulations. This generally isn't the conference where we see a lot of that, but it's always inherent in the majority of technology conferences, is making sure that standards and practices are being adhered to and that they are being rewritten on a regular basis to allow for the elasticity of the market space.
Right. So I look at this 2 ways. These kinds of things move glacially slow, but yet they really need to move. And the reason why Hipcricket is so active with the MMA and with the carriers is that we want to have a say, and the carriers and the MMA want us to have companies like ours to have a say, and because we're working with the Nestle's and the MillerCoors of the world, and we have real life experiences in terms of what folks are looking to do and not do. You know, one of our selling advantages is we talk to prospects about keeping them safe and doing the right things. You know, 130,000 campaigns. We're not the only ones that keep people safe, but that is still a challenge for a brand marketer. I'm on the Consumer Best Practices Committee. We talk about messaging. I think it's a 163-page document. Now, if you have a difficult time going to sleep tonight, I've got a PDF of that puppy for you, and believe me,
no problems.
No problem. But the good thing is that people like me and the many others who serve on this committee are charged with creating a document that is bulletproof, and that a MillerCoors brand or a Nestle brand or a Macy's brand manager doesn't have to take to bed and read. Right.
And get through and
right.
worry about, really, at the end of the day, that his brand's going to be compromised.
Right. But, you know, the flip side of that is you understand the carriers' challenges. They don't just want to run any campaign on their networks for a variety of reasons. Everything from need to follow the rules. You know, when it comes to messaging, the opt-in, opt-out, the help language, you know, I get very, very little spam on my phone, and the reason I do is because this is a system that is regulated, that is watched, that if you perform poorly, you won't be able to do any more mobile, you know, and you're, as opposed to the internet where it's kind of like a free-for-all.
So highly regulated, does that necessarily mean that we're getting into high barriers to entry?
I would put it this way. I think we're separating the providers to work with versus the providers to not work with.
Okay.
And this isn't a Hipcricket commercial, but there are companies who've been in the business a long time who have these experiences and have this expertise. And there are other people, no disrespect, who might start a mobile company in a garage in 2 days, 2 days ago, and they'll cut and paste the language because everybody says what I say. We drive engagement, loyalty, and sales, right? I mean, Tony, you can tell me better than I can how many people sit next to you and talk about the same thing.
No question about it.
So what we aim to do at Hipcricket is to prove, right? So we had a bit of a rude awakening. This was in 2007. We had a meeting with one of the trade publications, and the gal stopped us in mid-sentence, and she said, "Tell me something I haven't already heard from everybody else that came."
That's
to me.
a fair comment.
Right, and it was a great lesson. And you, doing so many interviews, you would know this better than I did. So we follow this prove it strategy. So when we talk about how we engage, so that, you know, when I talked to you yesterday about the Ford campaign that drove 15.4% lead conversion, that is driving business for a business. And so, is there a high barrier for entry? I think there should be a barrier for entry, but this is, you know, the early days of mobile.
It is.
Nobody, you know, there's leadership positions, but this is still, you know, shaking out over time.
There's still a lot of economics that's being driven behind this particular industry, but for technology as a whole, which is, pretty normal. It's driven by a younger generation, right, who don't necessarily have the capital infrastructure to be able to start off with a huge bang out of the gate. So, but that being said, it's still very easy for, you don't need a lot of capital to get engaged with organizations like the CTIA, like the MMA.
Right.
Those particular organizations have levels of membership that don't cost. And it is easy to get involved with those. So I would be an advocate of that for sure.
Right, and we've talked about this in the past. So I was co-creator of the Mobile Marketing Association certification program, and that's one of several programs intended to grow the industry, and that's intended to bring new people into the industry. So the tier 1 is a basic understanding of mobile marketing. It's kind of like a driver's test. How far do you park from the fire hydrant and still be legal, right? How many characters are in an SMS? What does MMS stand for? That's not needed for people like me and you who've been in the industry for so long, but for people who are looking for a growth industry. I live in Seattle, and we're in a tough economy like everybody else, but somebody was just telling me about the wealth of jobs that are available in Seattle, and they're primarily tech-related jobs. This is a great growth industry for people, and we have not closed the doors and said, you know what, we were the early ones, and the people like Hipcricket are going to keep everybody out. I mean, we're in the belief that we're in a growth industry, and that bring more money into it, bring more players into it, but let's just do it right, so we don't follow some of the bad practices of the internet. I go on my computer every morning and I spend a good 15-20 minutes deleting all the crap that I didn't ask for. Even how to opt out. There are some difficulties in even if clicking on a safe unsubscribe. It makes too many steps for me to go through. We haven't really followed those bad practices, so we need leadership. We need companies like Hipcricket and many other companies at this show to work with the MMA and the CTIA. But this industry will not grow the way it's going to grow until we bring in a lot more people who have a lot of passion, who want to work hard and be smart. And I think I mentioned to you yesterday, one of our smartest clients is Miller Coors, and he talks about digital strategy being core traditional marketing. We're not reinventing the wheel, we just happen to be using the mobile device because it's personal and is what people use. But so many people who aren't in mobile have an ability to influence it and come into the industry. And I've told you before, you'd have to drag me out of mobile right now. I mean, hopefully I don't come off as the hypester, but it's such a growth industry. It's so exciting. We're creating a future. The whole show and the people who normally come to these kinds of shows, that it's just an exciting time.
You bring up a really good point. This industry, from my perspective as well, we come to a CTIA or a GSMA conference or of the like, and we see the same people over and over and over again, especially when it comes to sort of this top tier C-level arena. Now, there are lots of people who go from position to position within different companies because they have the longevity and because they have the knowledge from where this industry has come from, which inevitably means, hopefully that they have that understanding of where it's going to. So you're correct in bringing on, a new set of younger generation that's going to be able to drive the same style of messaging and create new innovation at the same time.
Absolutely.
So there are a lot of jobs that need to be filled, and I think that from what I've seen in the companies that I've spoken to, those jobs are available. It's finding the educated people to put those butts in seats, and I think that and again, I generally don't get political, but I know that from a global perspective and especially from a North American perspective, the governments need to learn to help the young innovative industry and give them the advantages that maybe some other countries globally are trying to vie for the same thing to continue to grow the economy.
Yeah, for sure. And so we're in a pretty aggressive growth mode at Hipcricket. We've done 130,000 campaigns. We just doubled our staff over the summer. We see a lot more opportunity than we can chase at this point. So we're looking to aggressively bring on people. And so I'm involved in that interview loop in a lot of cases. And one of the questions one of the topics I always bring up is, if you're coming to a job and you're looking to know when the train arrives, okay, every day it's going to arrive at 10:10 and it's going to leave the station and it's going to get to the next station at 10:25. Mobile is not your industry because I have
Right.
I have no idea what I'm going to do today. I have
A particular schedule
a plan
to-
in place, but it's going to be uprooted by something else.
It's a malleable situation
Right.
at all times.
Right, and another way to put it to somebody in my company who says you have to have the stomach for this stuff, and he doesn't mean it in a bad way. It's just this is a business. Again, I've been in it since 2005. I haven't met anybody who's taken a shortcut, and it's not like we work hard and other industries don't. But you really have to go after it passionately, to give you a cliche, and smartly, and you have to seize the opportunity. You know, we're fortunate at Hipcricket to be perceived as a thought leader, and people like you ask us to speak, and we're in the press all the time. To me, there's a great opportunity for companies like Hipcricket and others to lead the discussion, and it's a really exciting place to be. On the other hand, it takes work. I mean,
It does.
we turn our computers on in this conference. Many of us, you know, the show starts at 9:30. Many of us have already put in a half a day,
Easily.
or several hours on the East Coast
Or
stuff,
just got home.
or just got home, right? But we took a shower, so we don't look like it. Like I said, a lot of companies have hard work, but I've met thousands of people in mobile since my time. I haven't met anybody who's found the secret to go, okay, I can skate along,
Sure.
and I can get where I need to go.
It's a really good topic to continue to discuss. That you're correct. Other industries do work. No disrespect to that, but from a capital raising standpoint, if you're a hedge fund or a bank or within a different style of industry, there is, in my perspective, an easier opportunity to raise capital to begin your business, whereas I think in our business, because a lot of the models aren't necessarily proven with a longevity,
Right.
that you have to work extra hard to be able to gain those that particular funding to do something. And this is a really good example of an unproven model. I was moderating a panel yesterday on augmented reality, and one of the questions that we had discussed was the idea that, you know, what is this opportunity versus barrier in augmented reality, and where's the tipping point going to be? And a particular panelist had given a study that said they had experienced putting a particular application out into the marketplace for to be utilized in a particular fashion. And when they had done that, they found that not only did an older generation start to use the application in a fashion that they didn't realize was going to happen,
Right.
that it exploded. So a social trend shifted that nobody had thought of,
Yeah.
and opened up an entire marketplace that was not in the business plan. And therefore, I think that echoes what you're saying. We got to work hard because we're not necessarily 100% proven in what this particular application or piece of equipment or something is going to have an effect as.
Yeah, so several thoughts on that. I presented at an iMedia summit to a bunch of brand marketers, and I co-presented with an agency person who had worked at Apple. She's a high-end marketer, and we were talking about trends. And she said, if we were to say anything beyond 6 months from now, we would be guessing like everybody else. And I don't know if 6 months is the right number, but two things. If you ask me what's the number one thing that fascinates me about mobile or my particular job, I'm interested in permission-based marketing, and you and I have talked about this a lot. I want to receive the marketing that I am interested in, and I'm willing to have this engagement with brands in exchange for that relevancy, right? But on the other hand, what fascinates me is I come to a show like this and I'm thinking, what is the next game changer?
Right.
Right. And obviously at Hipcricket we're trying to create those game changers as well. But we're only so many people, and we're doing what we can. But you talk about time shifting, right? I mean, who knew that all of a sudden there was going to be DVRs and it was going to uproot the world?
Fair enough.
Right. And if you listen to Twitter, and I think you were in Barcelona, if you listen to Twitter's keynote, they said, and I didn't see the proof, but I believe him when he said that DVR use is on the decline now because people want to interact in real time. Hey, did you see that show? What do you think of what she's wearing?
Absolutely, VOD is boom.
Right. So the live aspect has now flipped it a little bit. But there are game changers, and that's, I wasn't in technology until about 12 or 15 years ago, But what fascinates me about technology is the unknown. This is the train station stops.
Right.
If I knew every train station stop, it would be interesting to me, but it wouldn't be one of those that you couldn't drag me out of.
Right.
Right? Because not only do I want to lead, have our company lead that, but you need to be ready to react, and you need to be able to capitalize on the new thing. And if it's software or hardware or any other trend, how do we bring our brands, agencies, media companies, and others to make intelligent decisions about how to use this, when to use this, how do you chase something that's shiny? Just because something technologically is possible doesn't mean it's going to move your needle. On the other hand, there are brands, the world changes, right? So, people like us need to be smart and provide strategy. That's another big difference that we've seen in our business. Not that we weren't hired to be smart people, but we're now being brought in on the strategic level, and not just us, but other companies, because this becomes a more vital part of a marketing mix. And what you need to do is to get in on the front end and figure out, okay, so what is it we're trying to do here? Miller Coors, very simple: sell more beer.
Sell more beer. Simple.
And in my conversation with him yesterday, he said sell more beer, and in 20 minutes he probably said it 20 times. Very focused, and mobile just happens to be an important way for him to do that.
A vehicle to be able to sell more beer.
Right.
Jeff, always a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks for coming on the show today. We'll see what the rest of day 2 brings, and the rest of the year, which is coming to a close here pretty quickly.
It is. Again, it's an exciting time. I'm always thrilled when you ask me to speak to you. So thanks.
Thanks very much. So you are looking at the morning show here at the CTIA Enterprise and Application Show. I'm speaking with Hipcricket's Jeff Hasen. I am Tony Sklar. Looking forward to the rest of day 2 with bnetTV.